Void Mage Gamer is now partnered with Flipside Gaming, so you can use the promo code on their website, all caps, Void Mage, to get 10% off all orders $10 or more. It's a great way that you can support both Flipside Gaming and Void Mage Gamer's channel. Hey guys, looks like we have a new set to go over. Ravnica Allegiance. The other 5 guilds have offered us a lot of interesting things. I think a lot of high impact cards are definitely going to be in this set. And if you have watched previous videos of mine, you know that I go for interesting design over absolute power. I tend to appreciate those cards more than others. And as always, before we get into the top 10, I just want to go over some honorable mentions here. All the Planeswalkers in the set, the 3, Kaya, Dovin, and Domri, I just don't really think their design is interesting. They don't really offer anything else. Their power is weaker in the format. I don't really think that they were meant for a 4-player game. But if you're looking for Planeswalkers to get out there early, put in some work, they might be able to do that. But other than that, they're not going to be too interesting. And we have Rakdos coming back again. Unfortunately, in this form, it just doesn't really do anything other than potentially be a board wipe. What's actually going to happen if there are a decent number of creatures on the field? Some are going to die, a lot are probably going to stay. And that's just not acceptable in a board wipe. You're probably going to have a lot of fun, might also cause some headaches, having to flip a ton of coins. It's interesting design. Unfortunately, I just don't really see it being that great unless you want to throw it in as one of the 99. If you want to get some removal out of it and still have a 6/6 flyer, and number 10, we have a card that's really practical. What we kind of need in Rakdos, it's a little bit more versatile removal, and that is Bedevil. Anguished Unmaking has sort of set the standard for 3-mana removal in the format. While this is nowhere near that, you kind of get a combination of Hero's Downfall and Shatter that I really think Rakdos needed, because I think the most versatile card they've had up to this point was Rakdos Charm. One of my favorite commander cards, no doubt about it. But with Bedevil, you get the ability to choose between creature, artifact, and planeswalker, which makes sense because Red also hates artifacts. Some people said this is basically just Rakdos Putrefy, so color-wise, it does make sense. And then coming in at number 9 is Smothering Tithe. This is white Rhystic Study. Nowhere near as good as that because you're just getting treasure artifacts that can sacrifice themselves for mana, which is pretty good. We do have Revel in the Riches, which is a potential win con. Getting you a ton of treasure tokens, I think, could be good for that. But if you're just looking for extra mana, Smothering Tithe is pretty good in white. I would much rather have something like a Rhystic Study, though, where you could just draw cards. This, I think, is a little bit more tame. You still have to pay attention to triggers. The worst thing about these cards is that they require so much attention. If you miss a couple triggers, you could lose so much advantage. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty interesting card to have. Number 8, we have a card that probably a lot of people are going to hate, Persistent Petitioners. It's funny that in a set where we're focusing on the other 5 guilds that we actually get a card that really was meant for Dimir. Basically, it follows the same kind of rule breaking that cards like Shadowborn Apostle, Relentless Rats does, where you can play any number of them in your deck. In Commander, you can have 40, 50 of them. Where it gets even worse here is the fact that you can tap any 4 advisors, not just Persistent Petitioners, to mill an opponent 12 cards. That is insane. I've said before on my channel how I don't think mill is that viable of a strategy in Commander. It could be fun, but it's not really powerful. This could be incredibly powerful, and I might even consider it ban-worthy, because we do have so many ways to untap creatures. All of our creatures. We have Intruder Alarm, we have Paradox Engine, a ton of ways that we can just punish our opponents, and mill is not very fun. I do think it is interesting, though, to have a lot of creatures like these where you can play any number of them in your deck. I just wish that the design was a little bit better. Maybe instead of 12, it was cut in half. I don't know. Number 7 is Nikia of the Old Ways. This is insane that you get a mana doubler on your commander. That's, of course, if you choose to have Nikia as your commander. I think she does slot in pretty well into a Rurik Thar deck. That deck is all about not playing non-creature spells, so you don't really have any conflict there. Yeah, this is basically Mirari's Wake in Gruul colors. And in Gruul colors, you're not going to be playing a ton of non-creature spells anyway, so play all your massive creature spells. That's exactly what you want to do with this anyway. The design isn't really interesting beyond that, though, so she had a little bit more to her. I probably would have put her higher on the list. Number 6 is Mirror March. This is pretty cool. Kind of works well with the coin flip mechanic. So if you want to put in something like a Croc's Thumb, you can just keep flipping coins. That way you can have a better chance of getting the flips that you actually want, getting more tokens. But yeah, this is red at its best when it's the most chaotic, when you get a card like this that could give you so much advantage if you're willing to take the risk. I think a lot of decks that already just want more and more copies, something like Inala, or really just any mono red deck, because in mono red, you kind of just look for cards like these. You just want to make something out of nothing. And in Commander, it is about big plays. Number 5, we have Captive Audience. All of these modes are pretty punishing. This is basically a curse card. Without actually being a curse, you're giving it to one of your opponents. While it isn't going to straight up make them lose the game, it might as well, because one of the modes has them discarding their hand, the other has them going down to an incredibly low life total. While in Commander, it could take forever for a turn cycle to go around, you really don't have that much time to deal with Captive Audience before you really end up losing the game. I just think it's perfectly costed. It's 7 mana. It's something that could really ruin a player's game, set them back, but this is exactly what you look for when you want to punish the arch enemy at the table, whoever has the most stuff, and then they just have to depend on enchantment removal if they have it. If they don't have it, then they're screwed. But this is what Rakdos is. It's about being spiteful. It's about punishing your opponents. So you know I love this card. Number 4 is Awaken the Erstwhile. Everyone's going to be discarding their hands and creating 2/2 black zombies for each one of them. We already know how powerful discard can be in Commander with things like Liliana's Caress, Waste Not, and also the fact that zombies can be pretty powerful. Yes, you're going to be giving your opponents a ton of zombies if they have a ton of cards in their hand, but it's worth it if you're the only one at the table that can really synergize with zombies. And even if you did manage to just give them a ton of zombies and you can't really get over it, you still forced everyone to discard their hands, so you're not really going to have to deal with too much else after that. It's probably going to slow down the game considerably, but if you're in a deck like Nekosar the Mindraiser, you have ways of speeding it back up, and something like this is really just a way to get your opponents to discard their hands. But other than Nekosar, this is definitely a card for your zombie decks. Something like Verena the Lich Queen, where you can draw more cards, probably would go well in there. Number 3 is Prime Speaker Vannifar. She is basically Birthing Pod on a creature. Really nothing else about her. We already know this mechanic pretty well. If you're playing a good stuff deck, it allows you to have so many possibilities. Something like Derevi, Imperial Tactician, a deck where Birthing Pod is already pretty strong, but I think the combo potential is even greater with Prime Speaker Vannifar because you do have something like Intruder Alarm, which would normally affect a Birthing Pod, but it does affect her. So you can untap her whenever you get that creature, use her all over again. That could be pretty disgusting. You could likely get out your entire deck with that kind of combo. So in terms of power, she may just be the most powerful card in the entire set, but I am going to knock off a few points for creativity because this is basically Birthing Pod. And then number 2, we have what is, in my opinion, probably the best and most well-designed commander option in the whole set, Teysa Karlos. Giving all of your creature tokens, vigilance, and lifelink is nice. Lifelink is so underrated in Commander, it helps you stay into the late game. You have the whole afterlife mechanic in the set too, so you have a ton of ways to gain life, chump block your opponent's creatures. But of course, that's not why she's good. She's good because she basically just doubles any of your death triggers. You have cards that when they die, they force your opponents to lose life, you gain life, such as Blood Artist and Zulaport Cutthroat. These get doubled. You also have Butcher of Malakir, Grave Pact, a ton of powerful cards that already dominate the format in black. You can abuse all of these. She is definitely an improvement over the Envoy of Ghosts, and a little bit more like her original version, Teysa Orzhov Scion, where you had more versatility, more interaction in the deck. So definitely looking forward to playing with her. Orzhov is just so strong in this set. And then we have number 1, my favorite card in the whole set, and what I think is probably going to be the highest impact card, Rampage of the Clans. 4 mana green instant, you can destroy every artifact and enchantment and replace them with 3/3 centaurs. Now, again, it's not going to be the flashiest card in the set, but what it does is basically Terastodon whatever artifact and enchantment you need to deal with. Yeah, you give up having a 9/9 creature to block those beasts with, but you get a 4 mana instant that can basically board wipe every artifact and enchantment. Artifacts and enchantments are prominent in this format, probably more so than any other format. So having an instant speed removal spell as cheap as 4 mana to do that, I think is pretty spectacular. Definitely worthy of number 1 in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think about this top 10, what you think about Ravnica Allegiance as a set. You guys have a wonderful day. Voidier signing off. See you all next video.